The alien princess was speechless at the courage of the human diplomat. Zara of House Vex stood at the viewport of her royal vessel, gazing at the small blue planet below. Her silver eyes reflected starlight as she contemplated the upcoming meeting. She had heard stories about humans, their persistence, their adaptability, but had never met one face-to-face. The Council had selected Earth for first contact after decades of observation. Humans were considered unpredictable, dangerous even, but they possessed something the Arxians needed: creativity. The war with the Drakari had stretched Arxian resources thin, and their logical, methodical approach was failing against an enemy that constantly evolved its tactics. A soft chime indicated someone. At her chamber door, "Enter," she said. Susan Taylor stood in the doorway of the alien spacecraft, trying to control her breathing. The air was thinner than Earth standard, but breathable. Her diplomatic training had prepared her for many scenarios, but nothing quite like this. The alien before her was tall, nearly 7 feet, with luminescent skin that shifted colors slightly with each movement. Her eyes were entirely silver without pupils, and her head was adorned with what looked like crystal formations rather than hair. Ambassador Taylor. The translator device spoke the words of the alien princess. "Your courage honors us." Susan bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Highness. The courage is all yours. Inviting an unknown species aboard your vessel." Zara tilted her head, studying the human. She had expected fear, perhaps even hostility, but this woman showed only curiosity and respect. Fascinating. The princess gestured toward a seating area designed for different physiologies. "Please join me. We have much to discuss before the council meeting." Susan followed carefully, noting how the alien moved with fluid grace despite her height. The chamber was sparse by human standards, but beautiful. Crystalline structures grew from the walls, emitting soft light, and the furniture seemed to be living material that adjusted to her form as she sat. "Our scientists have studied your broadcast for decades," Zara said. "We know much about your cultures, your conflicts, your achievements, but little about you as individuals. Tell me, Ambassador, why did you volunteer for this mission?" Susan considered her words carefully, aware that this conversation would shape relations between two species. Most would say duty or ambition, but the truth is simpler. "I was curious. I wanted to see beyond our world, to know we aren't alone in the universe." Zara's skin rippled with shades of blue, a reaction Susan couldn't interpret. Curiosity, she said the word like tasting something exotic. "We Arxians value knowledge, but pursuit for its own sake is considered inefficient. Did your leaders not give you specific objectives?" "They did," Susan admitted. "To secure an alliance against the Drakari threat, to gain access to Arxian technology, to ensure Earth's safety. But those aren't why I came." The princess leaned forward slightly, her crystal crown catching the light. "You intrigue me, Ambassador Taylor. Perhaps you will help me understand why my analysts find humans so difficult to predict." 5 cycles later, as measured by the ship's rotation, Susan found herself being escorted to the High Council chamber. The Arxian diplomat, Vex Noru, walked beside her. His skin a neutral gray that Susan had learned indicated formal professionalism. "The Council is curious about you," he said. "They have never met a human before. Your species presents many contradictions, such as," Susan asked, "you create beauty with no practical purpose. You risk resources on unlikely ventures. You form emotional bonds with no genetic advantage. Your decisions often defy probability calculations." Susan smiled. "That's just being human, Vex." Noru tilted his head in the gesture. Susan now recognized as confusion. "But it is inefficient. Not everything valuable can be measured in efficiency," she replied. The council chamber doors slid open, revealing an enormous circular room. Its domed ceiling displayed what appeared to be a real-time map of nearby star systems. The 11 council members sat in a semicircle, their crystalline crowns more elaborate than Zara's, indicating their senior status. The princess herself sat slightly elevated behind them, an observer rather than participant. Susan approached and bowed as she had been instructed. The council members studied her silently, their silver eyes. Unreadable. Counselor Theck spoke first, his voice deep even through the translator device. "Ambassador Taylor, We welcome you as representative of Earth. We have reviewed your proposal for alliance. The terms are unacceptable. Susan maintained her composure, though her heart raced. May I ask which terms specifically? All of them, Thex replied. Our analysis indicates your species requires a structured hierarchy of command. Your proposal suggests equality between our civilizations. This is illogical, as Arxian. Technology is approximately 317 years more advanced than Earth's. Susan took a careful breath. Your technological advancement is precisely why we seek partnership, not subordination. We bring different strengths to this alliance, Counselor. Larix, a female with pale blue skin, interrupted. Different strengths. You speak of human creativity and adaptability. These are traits of lesser evolved species. We have moved beyond such unpredictability. With respect, Counselor Susan said that unpredictability might be exactly what you need against the Drakari. From the intelligence you've shared, they seem to anticipate your tactics with increasing accuracy. The council chamber filled with a harmonic sound that her translator did not process. Princess. Zara leaned forward slightly, her attention focused entirely on Susan. Counselor Thex raised a hand, silencing the room. The human makes an interesting observation. He admitted, the Drakari have indeed adapted to our standard battle algorithms with concerning speed. Another council member spoke, her crown vibrating slightly as she did. Perhaps we should allow the human to review our recent engagements with the enemy. Her species' perspective may reveal patterns we have missed. Thex nodded slowly. Acceptable. We will adjourn and reconvene after the human has been given access to the tactical database. Ambassador, your security escort will take you to the war room. Susan bowed again, surprised by this sudden access to sensitive information. The council filed out. Zara approached, her skin shifting through shades of purple and gold. You have impressed them, the princess said. That is rare for any being, much less an outsider. Susan smiled. Thank you, Your Highness. Zara's expression remained unreadable as she studied Susan. You should know that I advocated for this meeting against significant opposition. Many believed humans too volatile, too emotional for true alliance. But I suspected your species might see what we cannot. Why, Susan? Asked. The princess's skin settled into a deep violet hue. Because you dream, Ambassador Taylor. You imagine what does not exist, and then strive to create it. We Arxians lost that ability long ago, engineered it away in pursuit of perfect logic before Susan could respond. A security team approached to escort her to the war room. Zara nodded. Once then turned away, her robes flowing like liquid metal around her tall form. The war room was a spherical chamber with projections on all surfaces. Susan found herself floating in the middle of three-dimensional battle scenarios, watching as Arxian vessels executed perfect formations against the insectoid ships of the Drakari. After hours of review, a pattern emerged, not in the Arxian tactics, which were flawless, but in the Drakari responses. Susan called for Vex Noru, who had been waiting silently. I need to speak with the council immediately. She said, I believe I found something. When the council reconvened, Susan stood before them, feeling the weight of two civilizations on her shoulders. The Drakari aren't predicting your tactics, she explained. They're reading them. Your battle computers use quantum algorithms that should be unbreakable. But the Drakari have found a way to detect the decision process itself before you execute the commands. Impossible, Counselor Thex said. Our systems are secured by protocols developed over millennia. Susan projected the battle simulations she had annotated, here at this point and this one and here. The Drakari ships begin evasive maneuvers exactly 3 microseconds before your weapons lock. That's not prediction, that's interception. The council members exchanged looks, their skin colors shifting rapidly in silent communication. If true, Thex said slowly, this changes everything. How would you suggest we counter this infiltration? Susan smiled. The answer is simple. Stop using your battle computers. Make your decisions organically, unpredictably, humanly. Across the chamber, Princess Zara's skin glowed with a bright golden light that filled the room. The council chamber erupted in multi-layered tones that her translator struggled to process. Susan stood firm as the Arxians debated among themselves. their skin colors shifting rapidly through spectrums she could barely perceive. Beside her, the other human delegates shifted uncomfortably. Unused to the alien environment, Counselor Thex raised his crystalline staff, and silence fell instantly. Abandon our battle systems. This suggestion borders on insanity. Our entire defense network operates on unified quantum protocols. Susan took a deep breath. I'm not suggesting you abandon technology entirely. Just introduce an element. The Drakari cannot predict. Human decision-makers working alongside your systems, absurd counselor. Larix interjected. Humans lack the processing speed and mathematical precision our warfare requires. Your reaction times alone would cause critical delays. Princess Zara, who had remained silent until now, rose from her elevated position. The human speaks truth, she said. Her voice melodic even through the translator. I have reviewed the evidence Ambassador Taylor has uncovered. The pattern is undeniable. The council turned toward their princess, their expressions unreadable to human eyes but their postures showing. Clear surprise, Zara continued. We face extinction if we continue our current approach. The Drakari have adapted to our patterns of thought. They anticipate because we have become predictable. Perhaps unpredictability is now our greatest weapon. Susan felt a surge of hope as several council members' skin tones shifted toward purple. A color she had learned indicated thoughtful consideration. Counselor Thex, however, remained unconvinced. Even if this theory proves correct, how would such an integration function? Human commanders could not possibly interface with our systems at sufficient speeds. Before Susan could answer, Zara descended from her platform and stood beside her. Our scientists have been developing a neural interface originally designed to help rehabilitate damaged Arxian minds, she said. It could be modified to allow humans to connect directly to our tactical systems while maintaining their unique thought patterns. Susan looked at the princess in surprise. This was the first she'd heard of such technology. Would humans be willing to undergo such a procedure? Counselor Larix asked, skepticism clear in her tone. Susan straightened her shoulders. I would volunteer immediately. Later in her private quarters. Susan paced nervously. The council had agreed to test her theory but required a human test subject to interface with their systems. She had volunteered without hesitation, but now alone her doubts surfaced. What if her mind couldn't handle the alien technology? What if she lost herself in the process? Earth's governments were growing impatient. The Drakari threat loomed closer each day. But this risk seemed suddenly very personal. The door slid open without announcement, and Princess Zara entered. Susan quickly bowed, but the princess waved away the formality. You are troubled, she said. Susan sighed. Yes, the neural interface. Your doctors explained the procedure, but they couldn't tell me how it might affect a human mind. Zara moved to the viewport, gazing at distant stars. My people have used similar technology for generations, but never with another species. She turned, facing Susan directly. There is risk. I will not deceive you, but our simulations suggest compatibility. Susan studied the alien princess. Her luminescent skin glowed softly in the dim light of the quarters. Her silver eyes, though alien, somehow conveyed genuine concern. Why did you support my theory when the council was so dismissive? Zara was silent for a moment, her skin rippling with subtle colors. I have studied humans extensively. Your history, your art, your conflicts, you solve problems differently than we do. You see patterns where we see only chaos. You imagine possibilities we would never calculate. The Drakari think like us. They anticipate our logic, but they have never encountered human thought. She stepped closer, her tall form towering over Susan. They will not expect you. The medical bay was unlike anything Susan had seen on Earth. Crystalline structures pulsed with light around floating. Medical platforms, Arxian doctors, their skin the pale blue of their medical cast, moved with precise efficiency, preparing equipment she could not begin to understand. Princess Zara stood nearby, observing the preparations. Susan lay on the central platform, trying to calm her racing heart. The head physician approached. Our scans indicate your neural structure is compatible, though quite different from ours. The interface nodes will connect directly with your brain's electromagnetic field. There will be no permanent implants, but the experience may be disorienting. Susan nodded. I understand. Zara stepped forward, placing a cool hand on Susan's arm. You will not be alone. Ambassador, I will monitor the connection personally. Susan met those alien, silver eyes and found unexpected comfort. The procedure began, a gentle hum filling the air as crystalline devices positioned themselves around her head. She felt a strange tingling, then a sudden rush like falling into an endless sea. Data, pure and overwhelming, flooded her consciousness. Star charts, battle simulations, ship schematics, alien languages, millions of calculations per second. She gasped, struggling to maintain her sense of self amid the torrent of information. Then suddenly calm, a presence steady and cool like a mountain stream, guided her, showing her how to filter the information, how to maintain separation between herself and the vast network. Zara. Susan recognized the alien consciousness touching hers, not invading, but supporting. Yes, the princess responded, her mental voice melodic. How do you feel? Overwhelmed but functional. Susan replied, discovering she could communicate through thought alone. The sensation was indescribable, like having the universe spread before her, while simultaneously feeling every atom in her body. Let me show you. Zara's presence guided her deeper into the system, revealing the tactical networks that controlled Arxian defense forces. Susan saw with perfect clarity how the battle computers functioned, their elegant algorithms, beautiful in their complexity but also rigid, predictable. There, Susan pointed mentally at a subroutine. That's where the vulnerability lies. The decision pathways always follow the same logical progressions. Even with randomization factors, they're ultimately deterministic. Zara's surprise rippled through their connection. You perceive this so quickly. It's obvious when you're not thinking like an Arxian. Susan explained. The beauty of your systems is their perfect logic. But that's also their weakness together. They examined the defense network, Susan suggesting modifications that would introduce human unpredictability while maintaining Arxian precision. The hours blurred as they worked in perfect synchrony, their minds complementing each other in ways neither had imagined possible. When Susan finally opened her physical eyes, she found the medical bay filled with council members, all watching her with undisguised interest. Ambassador Taylor, Counselor Thex, spoke, his tone respectful. We have monitored your integration with our systems. The results are remarkable. You have identified 17 critical vulnerabilities. Our analysts overlooked and proposed solutions our programmers would never have conceived. Susan sat up slowly, disconnected from the interface but still feeling its echo in her mind. Thank you, Counselor. But the credit belongs equally to Princess Zara. Her guidance was essential. Thex turned to Zara. Indeed, Your Highness, your decision to champion this experiment appears vindicated. The Council has voted unanimously to proceed with a joint human Arxian defense initiative. Zara's skin glowed with golden light, her equivalent of pleased satisfaction. Ambassador Taylor has proven what I have long suspected. She said that our species are stronger together than apart. Our differences are not weaknesses but complementary strengths. 3 days later, the first test of the new integrated defense system was ready. A simulation against recorded Drakari attack patterns. Susan and 5 other human volunteers who had arrived from Earth worked alongside Arxian tactical officers, each connected to the battle network through modified interfaces. Susan stood at the command platform, Princess Zara beside her as the simulation began. The human Arxian teams worked in perfect coordination, the humans providing unpredictable tactical decisions, the Arxians executing them with precision. The simulated Drakari forces attempted to adapt, but without the predictable patterns they had exploited before they failed repeatedly. The command center erupted in celebration when the simulation ended, showing an overwhelming victory. Susan turned to find Zara watching her, the princess's skin glowing with colors she had never seen before. You have given my people something we had forgotten, Ambassador Zara said softly. Hope. Susan smiled, but her response died on her lips as alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Counselor Thex rushed into the command center, his skin pale with urgency. "A Drakari scout ship has discovered us," he announced. "They will summon their fleet. We must retreat." "No," Susan interjected. "We stand and fight. Show them our alliance has teeth." "Impossible," Vex replied. "Our defensive protocols require." But Zara interrupted. "The human is right. We have followed protocols for too long. It is time for something new." She turned to Susan. "What do you suggest?" Susan looked around at the mixed human and Arxian crew, seeing determination in alien and human faces alike. "Let's show the Drakari what they're really up against." The command center transformed as Susan outlined her plan. The Arxians moved with swift efficiency, while the human volunteers integrated themselves with the ship's systems through their neural interfaces. Susan stood beside Princess Zara at the central platform, her mind partially connected to the tactical network, feeling the steady presence of the alien royal beside her. "What you propose has never been attempted," Counselor Thex said, his skin shifting between gray uncertainty and red alarm. "You wish to use our royal vessel as bait." "Not bait," Susan corrected. "A demonstration. The Drakari think they understand Arxian tactics. Let them see something new." Zara's silver eyes studied the tactical projections. "We have the advantage of surprise," she agreed. "They expect us to retreat or follow standard defensive protocols. When we do neither, it will create confusion." The sensor officer's voice cut through the discussion. "Drakari vessels approaching." Detecting 5 warships in attack formation, Susan felt her heart rate increase but kept her voice steady. "Everyone to battle stations," she said. "Human tactical officers initiate interface sequence." Around the command center, humans and Arxians took their positions. The humans connected to the battle, network, their expressions distant as their minds joined with the alien technology. The Arxians monitored and supported, standing ready to execute the unconventional strategies. Princess Zara stepped onto the central platform, her crown glowing with power. "Ambassador Taylor," she said formally. "Will you join me in command?" Susan nodded and stepped up beside the princess, feeling the neural interface deepen. As she did, Zara's consciousness brushed against hers. Cool and precise like mountain air, "The Drakari will expect me to command defensively." Zara communicated directly to Susan's mind. "Our royal vessels are too valuable to risk in direct engagement. Then let's surprise them." Susan thought back on the main display. The Drakari warships approached, their insectoid design unsettling to human eyes. The vessels moved in perfect formation, weapons charging. Their attack pattern matched previous encounters precisely, as if they knew exactly what the Arxians would do. "They're waiting for us to implement standard protocol," Delta Counselor Thex observed. "They've already calculated our optimal defense positions. Then let's do something suboptimal," Susan suggested. Aloud, Zara's skin rippled with golden light. "All power to forward shields," she commanded. "Helm, take us directly at the lead vessel. Maximum speed." The Arxian officers hesitated for only a moment before executing the order. The massive royal vessel lurched forward, accelerating toward the Drakari formation. The enemy ships broke formation momentarily. Before regrouping, their weapon systems charged, targeting the approaching Arxian vessel. "They're confused," Susan said, monitoring the Drakari movements through the tactical network. "They expected us to maintain distance and deploy defensive drones." "Prepare." The modified drone swarm, Zara commanded. "Launch on my mark." Susan felt the princess's plan unfold in her mind. The standard defensive drones had been reprogrammed based on human tactical suggestions, no longer following predictable patterns. Now Zara ordered hundreds of small crystalline drones launched from the royal vessel, but instead of forming the standard defensive screen, they scattered in seemingly random patterns, some accelerating toward the Drakari, others moving in spiral formations, creating an unpredictable approach. The Drakari vessels opened fire, but their targeting systems struggled to lock onto the erratic drone movements. On the command displays, Susan watched as the enemy ships attempted to adapt, firing at predicted drone positions only to miss as the human-guided swarm changed direction unpredictably. The lead Drakari ship suddenly broke formation, attempting to flank the Arxian vessel. Now Susan thought to Zara. The princess nodded. "Deploy disruptor field," she ordered. Shimmering wave of energy pulsed from the royal vessel, catching 3 of the 5 Drakari ships. The insectoid vessels shuddered, their systems momentarily disabled. human tactical team, Zara called Implement Strike Pattern Omega, through the neural interface. Susan felt the human officers respond, guiding weapon systems with unpredictable targeting solutions. The Arxian weapons officers executed, firing precise energy beams at the vulnerable points the humans identified. 2 Drakari ships crumpled under the assault, their hulls buckling as critical systems failed. The remaining 3 enemy vessels regrouped, attempting to coordinate a counterattack. But the combination of human unpredictability and Arxian precision kept them off balance. The drone swarm surrounded one vessel, overwhelming its defenses, while the royal ship's main cannons disabled another. The final Drakari warship attempted to retreat. "Shall we let it go?" Counselor Thex asked. "One survivor will spread word of our new capabilities." "No," Susan said firmly. "They'll adapt. They always do. We can't give them that chance." Zara nodded in agreement. All weapons target the remaining vessel, she commanded. The combined firepower of the royal ship and its drone swarm converged on the fleeing Drakari vessel. Within moments, it erupted in a cascade of explosions, leaving only debris floating in the void. The command center fell silent as the reality of their victory sank in. Then a ripple of harmonic tones spread through the Arxian crew, their equivalent of cheering. Susan felt the human officer's elation through the neural network, a sharp contrast to the more controlled Arxian emotions. Counselor Thex approached the command platform, his skin glowing a deep, respectful purple. "Your strategy succeeded, Ambassador," he acknowledged. "Where our logical approach failed, your human unpredictability prevailed." Susan smiled, but fatigue was setting in. The neural interface, while not physically invasive, required intense concentration. The hours of battle had drained her. Zara noticed immediately. "Disconnect the interfaces," she ordered. "Help the humans to their quarters for rest." As the interface withdrew from her mind, Susan felt a momentary sense of loss. The connection to the ship, to the Arxians, to Zara, had become comfortable, almost natural. Without it, she felt suddenly isolated in her human body. The princess's cool hand steadied her. "You have done enough for today," Ambassador Zara said. "Rest. The council will want a full debriefing once you've recovered." Susan nodded, too tired to argue. The adrenaline of battle was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. As she was escorted to her quarters, she couldn't help wondering if this victory would be enough to cement the alliance, or if it was merely the first skirmish in a longer war. She awoke hours later to an urgent chime at her door. Still groggy, she called for entry. An Arxian messenger stood in the doorway. His skin, the formal gray of official business. "Ambassador Taylor, the council requests your immediate presence." Susan quickly prepared herself, wondering what had happened while she slept. Had more Drakari ships arrived? Had the council reconsidered the alliance? When she entered the council chamber, she found not only the 11 council members, but dozens of other Arxians, their skin colors displaying a range of emotions. Princess Zara stood as Susan entered. "The victory you helped achieve has been communicated to our homeworld," she announced. "The High Sovereign himself wishes to speak with you." Before Susan could respond, the central projection platform activated. A figure appeared, towering and regal, his crystal crown more elaborate than any Susan had seen. His skin shifted through colors so vibrant they almost hurt to look at. "Ambassador Susan, Taylor of Earth." The High Sovereign's voice resonated through the chamber. "Our royal vessel reports that your tactical insights were crucial to defeating a Drakari attack force." Susan bowed deeply, as she had been instructed for addressing the Arxian. "Ruler, your majesty, I merely offered a different perspective. The victory belongs to your people's technology and courage." The High Sovereign's skin rippled with blue thoughtfulness. "For generations we have relied on logic and calculation, believing emotion and intuition to be primitive traits we had evolved beyond. The Drakari exploited this, making our greatest strength our greatest vulnerability. But you humans, with your chaotic minds, have shown us another path." He turned to address the assembled Arxians. "I have consulted with the great houses. We are in agreement. The human alliance will proceed. The integration of our forces will begin immediately." The chamber filled with harmonics of approval. Susan felt relief wash over her. The Alliance would proceed. Earth would gain the protection of Arxian technology. The Arxians would gain human unpredictability. A fair exchange, Princess. Zara approached as the gathering began to disperse. The High Sovereign wishes to speak with you privately, she said, leading Susan to a smaller chamber adjacent to the council room. When they entered, the projection of the High Sovereign awaited. I have reviewed the battle recordings. Ambassador, he said, your mind works differently than ours, yet you were able to connect with our princess through the neural interface. An unprecedented achievement. Thank you, Your Majesty, Susan replied. Uncertain where this was leading, Princess Zara has proposed something unusual. The Sovereign continued. She believes our species could benefit from deeper integration, not merely military alliance but cultural exchange, scientific collaboration, perhaps even diplomatic marriage between our ruling houses. Susan blinked in surprise. Marriage, the High Sovereign's skin, rippled with amusement. Not in the human sense, Ambassador, but a formal binding between houses, a sharing of knowledge and resources, typically reserved for our most sacred alliances. She glanced at Zara, whose skin had taken on a deep violet hue that Susan had come to recognize as earnestness or passion. 3 days passed without word from Earth. Susan spent the time learning more about Arxian culture, their history, their technology. Their civilization was ancient and sophisticated with achievements that humbled her. Yet they had sacrificed something vital in their pursuit of perfect rationality. The emotional context that gave meaning to existence. Princess Zara proved an attentive guide, showing Susan aspects of Arxian life few outsiders had witnessed. They visited the vast hydroponics gardens, where crystalline plants grew in geometric perfection. They observed training sessions where Arxian youth learned to control their skin pigmentation, the subtle communication system that supplemented their verbal language. They discussed philosophy, art, and the nature of consciousness. Susan found herself drawn to the alien princess in ways she hadn't expected. Zara's perspective, though logical, retained traces of something more intuitive, something almost human. When they connected through the interface, their minds complemented each other, creating a harmony Susan had never experienced with another being. On the 4th day, Susan was summoned to the communication chamber. Earth had responded. The human delegation gathered as the transmission began. General Mason's holographic form appeared. Her expression. Grave Ambassador Taylor, the general began. We have reviewed your reports and the Arxian data. Our analysis confirms the Drakari threat is genuine and significant. The Defense Council has voted to proceed with the alliance. Susan felt relief flood through her. Earth would be protected. The combined forces of humanity and the Arxian Empire would stand against the Drakari threat. However, Mason continued, there are conditions. The diplomatic marriage, as they term it, must be thoroughly documented and studied by our xenobiologists and diplomatic corps. We must understand precisely what this union entails before final approval. Of course, Susan replied. That seems reasonable, and Mason added, her expression softening slightly. Are you certain about this, Ambassador? This goes far beyond diplomatic duty. We cannot and will not order you to proceed with this personal aspect of the alliance. Susan appreciated the concern. I understand the implications, General. I'm proceeding with open eyes. The transmission ended, leaving Susan contemplative. The alliance would move forward, but the final decision about her personal involvement remained hers. The weight of it pressed upon her, not just duty to humanity, but her own future happiness. She found Zara in the observatory again, the princess's tall form silhouetted against the stars. Susan joined her, gazing out at the vastness of space. Earth has agreed to the alliance, she said. Zara's skin rippled with golden light. This is welcome news, but they want more information about the diplomatic marriage. Susan added specifically what it entails. The princess turned to her silver eyes, unreadable. Our concept differs from human marriage, she explained. It is a binding of houses, a sharing of resources and knowledge. Sometimes it involves cohabitation, but not always. It can be political, practical, or personal, depending on the participants' wishes, and what would ours be? Susan asked directly. Zara was silent for a moment, her skin shifting through subtle shades of blue and violet. That would be for us to determine together. No preset parameters would be imposed. My desire is for a true partnership ambassador, one that would benefit both our species, but also perhaps, she hesitated, one that might grow into something more meaningful. Susan studied the alien princess. Despite their physiological differences, despite the vast gulf of evolution and culture that separated them, she felt a connection to Zara. That connection had begun as diplomatic necessity, evolved through neural interface, and now existed independently, as something she couldn't quite define. I need to understand completely what I'm agreeing to, Susan said, what it would mean for my future. For us. Zara nodded. Follow me. The princess led Susan to a section of the ship she hadn't visited before. The corridor ended at an ornate doorway that slid open at Zara's approach, revealing chambers far more elaborate than any Susan had seen aboard. The walls pulsed with living crystal and complex patterns. The furnishings, though alien, were clearly designed for comfort and aesthetics, rather than mere function. My personal quarters, Zara explained. Susan entered, feeling she was crossing a significant threshold. The room felt intimate despite its alien design. If you accepted the diplomatic marriage, Zara continued, these would be our shared quarters when aboard the royal vessel. You would have similar status to my own, access to all Arxian knowledge and technology. You would serve as voice for humanity in our High Council. Your unique perspective would guide our combined forces against the Drakari and us. Susan asked, what of us personally? Zara moved closer, her luminescent skin glowing softly in the dim light. We would be companions, ambassador partners in the truest sense. Our minds already align well through the interface, but such connections could deepen, become more natural, more intuitive. In time, we might develop understanding that transcends our biological differences. Susan considered this. The neural interface had shown her that consciousness could bridge the gap between human and Arxian minds. That connection had been exhilarating, intimate in ways she couldn't fully articulate. What if I refused, she asked. Not the alliance, but the marriage. What then? Zara's skin darkened slightly. The alliance would proceed, though perhaps with less efficiency. A different representative might be chosen from your species, though as I've said, our compatibility is rare. And you, Susan pressed, what would you prefer beyond political necessity, beyond tactical advantage? What do you want? Zara. The princess seemed taken aback by the direct question. Her skin rippled with colors Susan hadn't seen before. She began, then stopped, recalibrating. I find your mind fascinating, Ambassador. Your emotional responses, your intuitive leaps, your capacity for both logic and feeling. I have experienced consciousness through the filter of your humanity and found it transformative. I would choose connection with you even if political circumstances did not demand it. The honesty of the statement touched Susan deeply. Behind Zara's alien appearance and logical Arxian mind lay genuine emotion, connection, desire. She realized her own feelings mirrored the princess's. Their minds had touched through technology, but something more had grown from that contact. Something neither had anticipated. I need one more experience before I decide, Susan said. The full neural interface, not the simplified version. I want to truly understand what this connection between us means. Zara studied her. For what purpose? The simplified interface has shown you. Arxian thought. Susan stepped closer. Because this decision isn't just political or tactical, it's personal. I need to know if what I feel is real or merely an artifact of technology. The princess nodded. Understanding, I will arrange it. The medical bay was quiet, the Arxian doctors discreet as they prepared the interface. Susan lay on the central platform, Zara beside her on an adjacent one. Unlike previous connections, this would be focused not on tactical data or historical information, but on personal consciousness, the essence of who they were as individuals. Are you certain? The head physician asked. This level of neural synchronization has never been attempted between our species. Susan nodded. I'm certain. The crystalline devices positioned themselves around both their heads. Susan felt the familiar tingling, then the rush of connection. But this was different, deeper, more profound. She felt herself expanding beyond physical limitations, beyond species boundaries. Zara, she called. Mentally, I am here, the princess responded, her mental voice clear and intimate. Their consciousnesses intertwined, not merely communicating but sharing, experiencing each other's essence. Susan felt Zara's ancient heritage, the weight of royal responsibility, the sophisticated logical processes that defined Arxian thought. But beneath that ordered surface lay something else, emotions carefully controlled but powerful, curiosity about humanity, hope for the alliance, and something more personal directed at Susan herself. In turn, Susan opened her mind, allowing Zara to experience human consciousness with its chaotic emotional depths, its intuitive leaps, its capacity for both reason and feeling. She held nothing back, showing her fears, her hopes, her growing attachment to the alien princess. Time lost meaning as they explored each other's minds, sharing memories, experiences, dreams. Their differences remained but became complementary rather than divisive. Their separate consciousnesses began to synchronize, finding harmony without losing individuality. When the interface finally disengaged, Susan opened, her eyes to find Zara watching her. The princess's skin glowed with colors so vibrant they seemed to illuminate the room. Now you understand, Zara said softly. Susan nodded. Words seemed inadequate after what they had shared. The connection between them transcended physical form, transcended species. It existed at the level of mind and perhaps something humans might call soul. I accept, she said simply. 2 weeks later, Susan stood in the great hall of the Arxian royal vessel. The chamber had been transformed. For the ceremony, crystalline formations pulsed with light, creating patterns of extraordinary beauty. The air filled with harmonic tones as Arxian musicians played traditional melodies. Susan wore a gown created by Arxian artisans. The material, seemingly liquid yet solid, shifted colors subtly, with her movements mirroring the Arxian ability to change skin tone. Around her stood the human delegation, now expanded as more representatives arrived from Earth. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to lingering skepticism. The Earth delegation chambers buzzed with heated discussion. Susan stood at the center as her fellow diplomats debated the Arxian proposal. Some were enthusiastic about the deepened alliance, others suspicious of alien motives. All were shocked by the suggestion of diplomatic marriage. This goes far beyond our authorization. Kate Winters, the senior diplomat, argued, her voice sharp with concern. We were sent to negotiate military cooperation, not interspecies political unions. Susan maintained. Her composure, though exhaustion pulled at her. The neural interface experiences had left her drained, yet oddly energized. The High Sovereign offers us unprecedented access to Arxian technology and protection, she pointed out. Surely that deserves consideration, Alan Rivera. The military attaché shook his head. Marriage Ambassador Taylor. Do you even understand what that means to them? Their concept could be entirely different from ours. Actually, I do understand, Susan replied, because of the neural interface I've experienced Arxian thought patterns. Their diplomatic marriages are about shared resources, knowledge, and mutual protection, not reproduction. Kate frowned. You've been inside their minds. How do we know you haven't been compromised, your judgment altered? Susan felt a flash of anger at the accusation. The interface doesn't change who I am. It merely facilitates communication. If anything, it's given me greater insight into their intentions, which I believe are genuine. The room fell silent as the delegates considered her words. Finally, Kate spoke again. We need to consult with Earth before proceeding. This decision affects humanity's future. We can't make it unilaterally. Susan nodded. Of course, the Arxians understand that. We'll use their communication array to contact Earth headquarters directly. They've agreed to provide complete transparency, as the others filed out. Alan remained behind his expression, troubled. "You've changed, Susan," he said quietly. "Since the interface." Susan met his gaze. "I've experienced something few humans ever will. Alien consciousness. It changes your perspective. Does it change your loyalty?" he asked bluntly. She stiffened. "My loyalty is to humanity's best interests, which I believe align with this alliance." Alan studied her for a long moment before nodding. "I hope you're right," he said, and left her alone with her thoughts. Susan returned to her quarters, finding Princess Zara waiting for her. The alien royal stood by the viewport, her tall form silhouetted against the stars. Her skin glowed softly in the dim light, rippling with subtle colors that Susan had learned to read as contemplation. "Your delegation is concerned," Zara observed without turning. Susan sighed. News travels fast. The princess turned her, silver eyes reflecting starlight. "We did not intend to create discord among your people." "It's not discord exactly," Susan explained. "Just caution. This type of alliance is unprecedented for us. We need time to understand the implications." Zara moved closer, her movements fluid and graceful. "Time is a luxury the Drakari may not grant us. Their scouts will have reported back by now. They will know their attack force was destroyed. They will suspect new tactics. They will adapt." Susan felt the weight of those words. The victory they had achieved was significant but temporary. The Drakari had demonstrated remarkable ability to evolve their strategies. A single defeat wouldn't stop them. "Would you join me in the interface again?" Zara asked suddenly. "I wish to show you something." Susan hesitated. The neural connection was intense, intimate, but her curiosity won out. Yes, Zara produced a small, crystalline device, placing it on the table between them. "A simplified interface," she explained. "No need for medical supervision." Susan sat opposite the princess. The device activated, emitting a soft glow that enveloped them both. Susan felt the familiar sensation of her consciousness expanding beyond her physical form. Then Zara was there, her mind, a complex tapestry of thought and memory. "Follow me." The princess guided Susan found herself immersed in a vast celestial map. Stars, planets, and nebulae surrounded her, but they moved unnaturally, shifting positions at accelerated rates. She realized she was seeing a time lapse of galactic movement. "This is the spread of the Drakari," Zara explained. "The red systems show their conquest over the past century." Susan watched in horror as crimson stains spread across the galaxy, consuming system after system, hundreds of worlds, falling to the insectoid species. The expansion accelerated as it progressed, suggesting growing efficiency. The Arxian Empire in blue, Zara continued blue systems, appeared forming a substantial region of space. But as the time lapse continued, red encroached, on blue Arxian worlds falling one by one. The pattern was clear and devastating. "They will reach Earth within 5 years at their current rate," Zara said, "unless we stop them." How, Susan asked, stunned by the scale of the threat. "How do we stop something like this?" The princess's consciousness drew closer, meshing more deeply with Susan's. "I will show you." Suddenly, Susan experienced memories not her own. Ancient Arxian history unfolded before her. She witnessed a younger species, more emotional, more creative, developing technology at astonishing rates. Their early encounters with the Drakari resulted in victories driven by unpredictable tactics and innovative thinking. Then came the Great Rationalization, a philosophical movement that prized logic and efficiency above all else. Over generations, the Arxians engineered themselves, removing emotional variables from their genetics, enhancing logical processing. Their technology advanced in perfect mathematical progression, but their creativity diminished. Their tactics became increasingly predictable. The Drakari, who evolved through natural selection, maintained their chaotic, adaptive nature. They learned, studied, and eventually began to anticipate Arxian patterns. You see now Zara's thoughts intertwined with Susan's. We require what we deliberately removed from ourselves: the unpredictability, the creativity, the emotional intuition that humans possess in abundance. The diplomatic marriage I propose is more than symbolic. It would allow permanent integration of human thought patterns with Arxian decision-making at the highest levels of our government. Susan processed this revelation. The scope was far beyond what she had imagined. This wasn't merely about military alliance, but about evolutionary correction. The Arxians needed humanity to reintroduce traits they had engineered away. But why me specifically? She questioned. Zara's consciousness embraced hers. Compatibility. Our minds align well. Your neural patterns complement mine. Our thought processes balance each other. And she added with unexpected emotion, I trust you. The interface faded, leaving Susan breathless. The implications of what she had witnessed were staggering. Earth faced extinction within years, not decades or centuries. Without this alliance, the Arxians offered protection, but needed humanity's chaos to counter the Drakari's adaptability. The exchange seemed fair, necessary even, but would Earth's governments see it that way? The communication with Earth Command took place in the Arxian transmission chamber. Susan and the other human delegates stood before the holographic projections of the United Earth Defense Council. The 12 most powerful military and political leaders of the planet appeared skeptical. As Susan outlined the proposed alliance, "Let me understand this correctly," General Diane Mason said, her holographic form leaning forward. "You're suggesting we enter into not just a military alliance, but a political union with these aliens based on their claim of an approaching threat. Not just a claim." Susan replied, "We've verified their data. The Drakari expansion is real. The threat to Earth is approximately 5 years away. And this diplomatic marriage," Admiral Rodriguez interjected. "That's the concerning element, Ambassador Taylor. You specifically would be entering into some form of union with their princess." Susan nodded. "Princess Zara of House Vex represents the ruling family of the Arxian Empire. The alliance would be formalized through our union." "Have you been coerced?" Mason asked bluntly. "The neural technology they've used on you could potentially influence your thinking." "I have not been coerced," Susan stated firmly. "I've retained complete autonomy throughout. I believe this alliance represents humanity's best chance for survival." The council members exchanged glances. Their skepticism was evident, but so was their concern. The data on Drakari expansion had clearly disturbed them. "We will need time to consider this proposal," Rodriguez finally said. "This decision cannot be made hastily." "Of course," Susan agreed. "But I urge you to move quickly. The Drakari won't wait." As the transmission ended, Susan felt Princess Zara's presence behind her. The Arxian royal had observed the exchange silently. "They fear manipulation," Zara stated. Her skin shifted to thoughtful blue. Susan nodded. "It's a natural response. Humans have a long history of deception and betrayal. We project those possibilities onto others, especially those we don't understand." Zara moved to stand beside her at the communication array. "Your counsel is wise to be cautious, but time favors the Drakari. They grow stronger with each world they consume while we debate." Susan turned to face the princess. "You're asking for tremendous trust. From my people. From me personally." Zara's silver eyes met hers. "Trust must begin somewhere, Ambassador," she said softly. "Would you join me in the observatory? I wish to show you something physical this time, not through the interface." The observatory occupied the highest point of the royal vessel. A transparent dome revealed the unfiltered majesty of space stars shimmered against the perfect black. The blue planet Earth hung in the distance, a fragile sphere of life. "This is how I first saw your world," Zara said as they stood beneath the dome, so small yet so vibrant with possibility.